everybody, this is the Vibe Broken Arrow podcast about Broken Arrow, all about Broken Arrow, produced right here in Broken Arrow City Hall. And this is Rounding Third with City Manager Michael Spurgeon, who needs no introduction. We have got a whole list of things to talk about this month. A lot of really good stuff happening. Let's start right now with something that actually started just 2 days ago, and that is the expansion of Houston Street between Garnett and Olive, going from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. How big of a deal is this?
Big.
Yeah.
Super big, Aaron. I get really excited about infrastructure projects because, as you've heard me say since you got here, and I've always said this, is that, you know, the foundation in which a community actually sits and actually grows from is if you're taking care of what I call the 4 corners of engineering, which is your roads, your stormwater, your sanitary sewer, and your drinking water. And we've got plans for all of those. And the Houston project from Garnett to basically to Olive is the first mile that we're going to do on Houston. And just before we get into the road specifically, this is just a reminder is that shortly after we complete that construction, the voters have also approved going even further east. So we'll be moving from Olive up to Aspen once we finish the what I call the west mile on Houston.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I drove it the other day, and proof is in the pudding. Utility work is happening there between Olive and Aspen on Houston. So that's part of getting that mile ready to go so that whenever that west mile finishes, the east mile can get going on. So you talked with Skylar Cooper of KRMG the other day about this project.
Yes.
You said something that made me laugh as I was on the road. And Skylar asked you, what can drivers expect over the next year? So I'm going to put it back out there to you because it did. It made me laugh, your response. What can drivers expect over the next year there at Houston between Garnett and Olive?
Well, if I could go back and answer that question again, I would have said, respectfully, a lot of delays. On the radio, I just said they can expect delays, and I say that with the utmost respect, okay?
That's right.
I mean, obviously, you've heard me say this a lot, is that progress requires some inconvenience. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you can't snap your fingers or wave a magic wand and a road widening is completed. Every road widening, whether you're going from 2 to 3 or 2 to 5, you're looking at about a year. If there's a bridge structure or 2 that's involved, you're definitely looking at a year. It could be even longer because of the intricacies that it takes in order to get all the grading correctly and to make sure that the flow is set, the road widening as all that work is done. And plus, the city, another thing which is so cool about what's happening, we're not only talking about transportation on the road, we're looking at sidewalks and we're looking at trails because pedestrian connectivity is extremely important to Mayor Wimpy and the city council, and the residents in their survey talked about the importance of connectivity. Mm-hmm. So all of our projects are not road widenings anymore because we've done road widenings many years ago where sidewalks weren't put in. And so that's created a lack of connectivity. And so unfortunately, and I apologize that there is going to be delays, lots of orange cones, but it is temporary. And I can tell you, you look at what Washington has done when we basically did 2 miles of Washington, that east-west corridor. And what this is going to do as well, it's going to create another opportunity for residents that are going out of town or coming back into town to be able to do it more effectively, more efficiently, and more safely when we get this project done.
Yeah, big opportunity for us to help with folks who are coming in and leaving the community. Now, this is a 2018 voter-approved project, about $5.7 million. Interestingly enough, this month, City Council set the date for the next series of sales from that 2018 bond. Those are sold every year so that they understand that it's a 10-year series. And so every year we sell another series of these bonds, about $23.5 million worth. There are a couple of projects in there, and we'll find out on October 15th how much, the financing and all that is going to be worth. But we do have the final list of projects. There's a couple on there that I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
Widening Aspen from Tucson to Shreveport, so heading into Indian Springs. It looks like we're going to be securing the funding for that construction project.
Well, me, I like sometimes when you ask me what time it is, I'll build you a clock. And so I think before I answer that question specifically, it's just a reminder is that in the 2018 bond package, we see a lot of comments on social media about road improvements. We still have what I would say is 10 and a half miles left within the 2018 bond package. Mm-hmm. What's exciting is the fact that we've got well over 10 additional miles of roads that are going to be widened, albeit from a 2 to 3 or a 2 to 5 based on the capacity that we're looking at for that road. One of the most important widenings we still have left to do from the 2018 bond package is exactly what you just said. I mean, obviously, Indian Springs Sports Complex, which has soccer there, it has adult softball periodically, and it has youth baseball, is one of the premier places to play in the state of Oklahoma. And getting folks to and from the facility in a safe, efficient manner is extremely important. So the voters approved funding for that basically what I'll call a mile and a half. So what I'm excited about is that council has basically included the funding for that project. There's going to be an improvement at the intersection of Jasper or 131st and Aspen that will go first, be started probably right around Labor Day of next year, either shortly before, shortly thereafter. And then as that starts to finish up, we'll award a contract to actually do the widening to go from the current condition of the road out to 5 lanes with improvements as well as Tucson. And that, once again, that's going to take probably a year or so from the time we get started, maybe a little bit longer since we're doing the intersection first because we got a federal grant. But I can tell you when that's all done, that corridor, you just think about it right now, that corridor with all the improvements that are happening at the Aspen Ridge development. And we're also looking at trying to develop the 14 acres. Hopefully there'll be a hotel that will be there in the next couple of years to support the events that are happening down there. So that's a major improvement. I just want to let the public know that Charlie Bright, our Director of Engineering and Construction, and his amazing team, they're on top of it, and we're certainly hope that we'll be able to meet that target date of getting started around Labor Day of 2025.
And the Shops of Aspen Creek, too. Development there that's going to be happening. So that's a main corridor, main thoroughfare there to get to that one as well. So fantastic.
It is very, very exciting. And I thank the council for approving that. Our 10-year bond package, it's not a level sale. In other words, voters approved about $211 million, just short of it. It's not selling $21 million a year. It's based on keeping the tax rate at the 16.5 that we said we would. So some years it's been a little bit lower than 21. And then if we've had some growth in assessment, we've been able to go above whatever the amount was. And so this year we were able, with the assessed value increase, I think add about $1 million or $1.5 million to be able to sell of approved projects so we can continue to do great things and maintain the great quality of life we have within our city.
That's a great update because you're kind of pulling back the curtain and letting folks know exactly how that bond works and keeping that millage rate level and flat so the tax rates don't go up, and that we're not able to do everything all at one time, too. So really appreciate that update, especially, too, when you consider that's probably now that 37th Street between Kenosha and Albany is under construction. Aspen between the Creek Turnpike and Indian Springs Sports Complex is probably our number one roadway that's asked about as far as the public is concerned. So
it is. Actually, there's two, and I'm not sure which one. They kind of run neck and neck. So we hear a lot about Aspen, and we're ready to rock and roll on that. It's just a matter of getting the remaining right-of-way and then following the federal guidelines for the grant they received for the intersection. Also, I just want to send a shout-out about what's happening on Lynn Lane. We get a lot of calls. In fact, I jokingly said to staff is that as soon as we get 209th under construction, we'll start to hear a lot about basically Lynn Lane between 81st and 101st at the intersection of Washington right there. And voters approved for 2 miles, the 81st to 101st, and they also improved basically Lynn Lane to County Line Road for Washington. And so we've got plans being developed. We're going to do the intersection at Washington, and we can talk about this more later, but in case you decide to use...
I was going to ask you about that I had highlighted was Washington and County Line Road.
Okay, this is big.
So go for it.
This is big. Actually, just two things. We're looking at doing the intersection at Washington and Lynn Lane, pulling that out, getting that intersection, because the traffic jams is people trying to turn left to go east. Okay, or the people going north trying to turn back to the west. We take care of that intersection. That allows us to finish the design on those 2 miles. Then we'll have to relocate the utilities, and then we can finish the design and go to construction. The other cool thing is, Assistant City Manager Kenny Schwab, we had some remaining grant funding from many years ago. We're going to be able to actually apply those grant funds at County Line in Washington, because we get a lot of concerns and calls about the backups that happen twice a day there. And we're looking at options to actually improve that intersection. And so I just want the folks to know we hear you, and that, there's always going to be more wants than there is dollars available to address those needs. But so we're working off a priority basis. And I can tell you, there was a lot of thought that went into the 2018 bond package on which roads need to be done. And there has been tremendous thought, and there's going to be a lot more, as you know, on what roads we put in the transportation package for the April of 2026 bond package that the voters will consider.
I'm glad you brought up the intersection, because one of the things I've learned since I've been here from you and from Assistant City Manager Kenny Schwab is turning movements and how much an intersection can really alleviate some of that traffic congestion. And so we're really looking at a lot of those things, and that's why we're going for Washington Inland Lane, Washington and County Line, and looking at making some improvements at those intersections, because we don't always have to widen a road. You get a lot of bottlenecks right there at that intersection. If you can make improvements there, you're improving that flow. You're easing some of that congestion. That's a really big deal.
It really is. And actually, we're at the City Council work session that we're having on October 22nd. There's going to be a philosophical discussion amongst the council and the administration about how best to spend the dollars we have available going forward for road improvements. In other words, just like you said, can you make improvements to the intersection to make it fully functional? And my definition of a fully functional intersection would be Elm Place and Kenosha. Because if you look at that, there's right turn lanes, and then there's two left turn lanes, which means you can move traffic much more efficiently, because the folks that are pulling up that want to turn right, if there's no turn lane there, they can't turn right, so you're actually backing up traffic for those people that want to turn right. Well, if you expand the intersection, you can actually move traffic, and that's really what people want, is they want to get to point A to point B in a very safe and efficient manner. And that's why you and I've talked about this, and I don't want to spoil any of your thunder, but we will be talking more about road improvements and all that's happening in BA. And I'll let you, sometime when you're ready, announce what we're going to call it. But
absolutely,
we hear you. We hear the citizens. A lot of comments on social media. We might be talking about something to do with Elam Park, and somebody will comment about roads. And we know that it's a very big concern of theirs. And believe me, we have, like I said, about 11 to 12 miles left of road to be done, and we can't wait till 2026, because the voters are going to get a chance to consider a very robust package of additional and widenings, intersection improvements, connectivity that's just going to continue to make the quality of life great in our city.
That's a bottom line, what we've found with motorists, and just for us as drivers ourselves. When you're driving BA, you want to keep moving.
That's right.
Keep an eye out for that, driving BA.
Hint, hint.
You mentioned earlier connectivity, sidewalks, grants, that sort of thing. Big month for grants. We're going to head out north just to Highway 51 there. We got a $5.8 million grant from the federal, from the U.S. Department of Transportation. We actually knew that we got it about a year ago, but what happened this month was that we finally got the agreement from the federal government. It takes about a year for these things to happen. Once we get the agreement, then we can sign it, and then we can get going. This grant allows us to do some planning to improve some connectivity, roadway and pedestrians. This has been a big focus of the cities, of yours, of city councils, of Mayor Wimpy's. Why, just to reinforce, why is connectivity so important?
Well, you're either trying to move cars or you're trying to move people. And you can move people by way of cars, or you can move people by way of great walking and connectivity, biking and so forth. And so we want to be a community that has all of those, and be able to say that we do it well. Well, when you're a fast-growing community, because the private sector believes Broken Arrow is a great investment, whether it's in additional housing projects or it's commercial retail or it's primary jobs, is that the private sector loves Broken Arrow. They know that they can work with the city. Will work with them. We'll hold them accountable for what's very, very important. But yet we want to encourage their development. And so when you have a community that the private sector believes is the community is a good place to work with, they look at those communities. Well, we need to take a look and be on the forefront and visioning what we'd like for our community to be. And we hear all the time about the importance of vehicular traffic and how we move it. Well, how do you do that? We need a planning grant. And the federal government, through the Department of Transportation, made almost $6 million available to allow us to study an entire corridor. And you hit it. I mean, we're going to start from Aspen, and we're going to go all the way up to Camino Village to look at how do we move traffic, not only on Highway 51, how do we get traffic off of Aspen? How do we get traffic off of Elm Place? And more importantly, how do we get traffic off of Lynn Lane? How do we get traffic onto Highway 51 much more effective and efficiently? And this grant, how do we get walking trails to and from the commerce within our community? That's what this planning grant is going to do. Is we're going to hire a consulting engineering firm, and they're going to study all of these areas and come up with options and recommendations to the city on how we may have to reconfigure some of our interchanges, such on Elm Place, especially on Lynn Lane, to look at how we can get folks on and off those interchanges much more efficiently and safely. And so we're excited about it. I mean, when you can get $6 million, that's $6 million of federal dollars coming back to the taxpayers of Broken Arrow. And the great thing about it is once we have the planning done and council makes some determinations on what they'd like to see completed, that allows us to take the next step and apply for federal funding to actually help pay for some of those improvements. And you know this, and just it's been a year, is we're on the Oklahoma Department of Transportation's 8-year plan for Lynn Lane.
Glad you brought it up, because I was going to ask you how this plays into that.
It plays huge, because that could be, we're talking in what I would call Elon Musk type money here, to basically make the reconfigurations to Lynn Lane alone could easily be between $50 and $60 million. When you start looking at actually the reconfigurations, adding additional ways to get onto the interstate, as well as, or the highway, I should say, as well as any improvements they make on there itself, that's extremely expensive. And that's something the city can't afford to do now. We'll have to come up with 10 to 20% of that, which we have through our bond projects and approvals from the voters and our bond funds. We'll be able to pay our 10 to 20% match. But trying to come up with that kind of money, we could certainly do it, but we'd have to make some very difficult choices in what other roads would have to be put off for another bond package in order to do that, Aaron.
I'm glad you brought up that Elon Musk type money, just because whenever you think about it, that $6 million grant, $5.84 million, rounded up to $6, that's just for planning. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of opens your eyes that, whoa, if that's just for planning, how much is the construction going to cost for all of these improvements? And that really kind of gives folks an idea that it's not inexpensive. It's not cheap to do these sorts of things.
No, and I think the most important thing to let our citizens know and those watching this is that we have great relationships with our legislators at the state level and the federal level, and we keep them informed about what we're trying to do here and what the vision is to actually make sure that we have more efficient and more effective and safe transportation, because we need their help basically fighting for those state and federal dollars. And that's why, with our I'll mention Senator John Hayes and Representative Ross Ford, for example. They're two of our legislators that I've worked with extensively over the years, as well as Stan May, for example. Those are just a couple of the legislators that, I've talked to about the importance of being on the ODOT's 8-year plan. And then we've talked to our federal delegation, Congressman Hearn, about making sure that the Broken Arrow wins the grant for the planning grant, because once you have a plan, then you can ask for additional dollars. And so they're up there fighting for us, trying to bring those dollars back to Oklahoma and specifically to actually Broken Arrow. And all of our delegation has done a great job. So I want to send a shout out to all of them, because they know, we are, I like to say this jokingly, 9 months out of the year, we're the 4th largest city in Oklahoma, and 3 months out of the year, we're the 3rd largest when the students at OU are not in session. When you're the 3rd, 4th largest city, in the state, you're going to have special needs with regard to your infrastructure, and knowing that we have delegations that are fighting for us at the state and federal levels respectively is really exciting.
Another thing that's exciting, staying with that transportation theme, is the microtransit program that we have here in Broken Arrow. We launched Broken Arrow Transit back in March 2024. And for people who aren't familiar with it, this is a public rideshare program, very much like the private Uber, private Lyfts. But it's financed by the city. It's operated by the city in partnership with Metrolink Tulsa, formerly known as Tulsa Transit. We just expanded. Our city council approved us expanding to a second phase of this because of the success. You want to tell us just how successful this has been in the first 4 to 6 months of the program?
Well, once again, let me just step back here. About 4 years ago, the city council administration have a discussion, and that specifically about, we know we can do better in terms of providing public transportation options to those citizens of our city that have a need for public transportation. and what we were doing simply wasn't as efficient as it could be. And with the ways people are transitioning to rideshare programs, and it's become very popular. It's even become more popular in Broken Arrow and Oklahoma. I can tell you is that, well, is there a way to do this to where we can offer more rides to folks to get them to where they need to go within the city to get the services or goods that they need day to day. And so that started 4 years ago and went through basically a citizens committee was created with the council members being on it as well, staff members. And I'm just pleased to say that we just finished up the first 6 months of the rideshare program, and it was an incredible success. Just a couple of data points is that when we were using the bus service that went around the city, I think we had about 170 riders per month. In August, using our rideshare program, which only has 3 vehicles and a van, we were over 500, maybe close to 550 or 60.
I think that's right.
Actually, individuals that actually rode in basically with one of our drivers, which is a 260 or 270% increase just in one of the 6 months of the pilot program. So at the council meeting earlier this month, basically last Tuesday, we recommended to council that we actually expand the program to a phase 2 because we want to make sure we test everything. So not only did we have more ridership, we actually reduced what it was costing us versus having the bus service for that bus line. Most important thing to remember about this is that we did not change the bus route that goes downtown Tulsa for those folks that need to be able to get to downtown and back from the downtown Tulsa. Is we're going to be expanding the hours later this year, and we're going to pick up 2 additional areas, one to the east, actually be taking, I believe, in the Walmart out to the east and those areas out to the east, and we'll be going further south down in the Aspen, Olive, and Elm Place area to provide some more areas for people to be able to and go from with our ride program. I mean, the challenge right now is it's not like the traditional Uber program where you can pick up and hopefully within a few minutes you can get a ride, and then when you're at your destination, when you're ready to leave, and within a few minutes you can get a ride home. We only have a certain number of drivers, and so the length of time you have to wait to get a ride with us is going to be dependent upon are the drivers out there with other customers.
Yeah, could they be busy?
They could be busy, and I think they're going to continue to get busy. And if that's the case through data, then the city at some point may have to increase the number of drivers and vehicles that we have. We're fortunate to get a federal grant for the purchase of the vehicles, which is really good. And actually, there was a second phase of a grant that we could actually use for operations, because this fits right in to the federal government, what they're looking to do in terms of helping folks that need transportation to be able to get that public transportation. And so we're doing it with a partnership. So for us, there's very little overhead cost other than the vehicles. The personnel is being handled by way of a contract with the folks there in Tulsa, and we're excited about that partnership, and they've been great to work with.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that grant. It's about a $250,000 grant that we got from the federal government, and that's going to cover operational expenses for the next 2 years. Speaking of expenses, it's also, Broken Arrow Transit is a very affordable program for folks too. I mean, you can get $4, get you an all-day pass.
Yes.
That's unheard of.
It is. You know, that's just what's important. Some folks need help getting around, and we want to make sure that they have the same opportunities as everyone else within certain limitations. You know, and that's why I'm excited that I think this phase 2, which will be over probably in the spring of next year, we may come back and look at expanding the hours even further into the day. I believe with the expansion, we're going to be going from 7 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night, which is an expansion. I'd like to see if it's affordable and if it's cost effective and justified for us to be able to provide services on the weekends. Okay. And so that's something that could be in a phase 3. But I think about this time next year, we'll be through with all the testing, and we'll be able to say this is our program, not to mean that it couldn't change and be expanded even further. But we've looked at opportunities about getting out to the airport. For those people that have limitations, there's all kinds of things we're looking at. Nothing's etched in stone yet. Nothing is really off the table per se. I mean, obviously, we don't want to compete with other folks that are doing ride share, but we also want to make sure our residents have ways to get around this community in a very safe and efficient manner.
I appreciate the fact that we're doing this in phases, that we're analyzing the data, looking back at those 6 months, what are our opportunities for growth, and making sure that we're using the taxpayers' money wisely. Yes. And that is what is so appreciative of this program. And so have patience with us, because there are opportunities for growth, but we have to find out where those opportunities of growth are based on the data. And so I'm sure we're going to see even more growth come out of this program. Like you said, this time next year, it could be much bigger program.
I agree. Our community development department, Rocky Hinkle and his team, they have just knocked it out of the park, so to speak. We're getting ready to start the baseball playoffs, so I like to use that analogy. They have knocked it out of the park in terms of how they have thought through the operational aspects of this, how it's going to work, done the transparency and the marketing and the communications on it, and we're just getting started.
That's right.
That's why I'm super excited about where we're going with this, and I just think we may be a model. We've already had a lot of cities contact us asking us how we've done this, and they want to see some of our information. And so, once again, my hope is not only are we providing our citizens a better way to get around that need assistance, but also to be a model for other communities to look at this and see if this is something would work for their community.
Yeah, talking about being a model, Broken Arrow Fire Department is a model of consistency when it comes to the SAFER grant. This month, they just, for the third time in the past 9 years, they received some money. They received about $2.9 million to hire 12 new firefighters. Public safety is a huge initiative for you. I understand that. How big is this, especially when you consider some of the things that are happening within Broken Arrow Fire Department, a new fire station, a new mental health crisis team that is embedded with our firefighters? How important is this to our community, all of these things that are happening with BAFD?
Very.
Yeah. And with that, we're done, folks.
in a word, I mean, you know, I've said this to you 3 times. You've heard me say this. I believe that the success of a community, it begins and ends with your commitment to public safety. Mm-hmm. If you're not a safe city, and a lot of people think when you think safe, you think the police department, and that's perfectly correct. Mm-hmm. But there's 2 other aspects of public safety. There's the fire and rescue, which are normally in the same department, and then there's civil defense, emergency management. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 of the best. There's no question about it. And to me, the commitment financially, policy commitments that we make to our public safety are extremely important. Our citizens in the recent survey said their number one they like about the city and confidence is public safety. Mm-hmm. They feel like that if they call 911 and if the bell goes off in the stations, our folks are going to be there and they're going to do the most professional and effective job of saving lives or saving property. And I'm totally behind them 110%. Now, quite frankly, public safety is a very, very important expense. Number one expense. It's expensive, quite frankly, because you make sure you want to have the very best. There's a cost associated with that, and so we're always looking at ways to try to make sure that we're doing things effectively and efficiently. And anytime you can get federal dollars to help offset operational costs, and especially in this particular situation where the chief is looking to overhire firefighters to look at other opportunities to better serve the citizens and use these funds as a way to look and see if these programs he's working with his leadership team on to implement, is it going to make us a better and safer city? Is it going to reduce response times? Is it going to increase the quality? Is there some way with the training that we do, with the facilities we have? That's what bond packages are for, to actually give us opportunities to make improvements with approved projects for better training, better actually fire safety training, actually like fighting fires in buildings and knowing how to attack certain fires. And so I give Chief Moore and his team, I know that it took a team to do this, applying for that grant. It was big. It was big, and I'm very grateful for that.
And so this grant hires 12 new firefighters starting in March of 2025. It's a 3-year grant. You mentioned overhiring. What does that mean?
Just means is that every year we have a certain number of firefighters, in this case the fire department, that actually retire. So we know they're all going to, for the most part, they all spend at least 25 years, and then at some point around the 25-year mark, usually either a little before or a little bit after, and some say longer, they decide that they're going to retire. And that creates an opening. And so we just can't put out a notice and hire somebody in 2 weeks. everyone has to go through a fire academy. And so we have to wait, and we usually do one academy a year. So we typically have, according to the information the chief has given me over the years I've been here, we have about 6 firefighters that retire a year. And so we need to fill 6 positions to be up to the full strength. So what I like to do is actually in the academy, and the fire chief and I came up with this, and we do it with the police department as well, we overhire in anticipation that sometime during the fiscal year that we're going to have a firefighter or police officer that's going to retire. Now, they all don't make those decisions on July 1st of the beginning of the fiscal year. I mean, they get with their families, circumstances, situations come up, they make a decision. That may not be until 6 months in that they let us know they're going to be retiring in 60 days. So the overhiring allows us to stay up with who we don't know who they are, but we know there's going to be a certain number of firefighters, police officers are going to retire. The overhires, once again, will allow us not only to fill those positions we know they're going to retire to stay up to the level, but the additional firefighters we're going to be adding on, the overhires, will allow us to make sure that we meet our requirements to have a certain number of personnel on shift. And to look at making sure for staffing, if we need firefighters on the ambulance, for example, or if there's other initiatives that the chief would like to implement, working with the local representatives of the IAFF, then we can try to work out something that's going to improve the safety of our community, because that's what everybody's really about, is trying to come up with effective operational plans that improve the response time and how we serve our citizens whenever the bell goes off.
And it sounds like it helps with that overhiring, because, as you say, you don't know exactly when folks are going to make that decision, and that's completely up to them to retire. It also keeps us at that level of maintaining that staffing so that we're not compromising the needs of our citizens whenever they're calling us in their greatest time of need, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Which, as you say, I mean, public safety is number one, and we have to heed that call whenever it comes.
I mean, like I said, I couldn't be prouder of what all of our public safety personnel, all the city employees actually do for the citizens. I mean, they understand the concept of servant leadership. They also understand the philosophy that I'm proud to say that I preach every single day is, how do we get to yes? How do we get to yes to better serve our citizens? How do we get to yes to better serve our businesses? And my definition of yes is, have you done everything you can to try to help a resident either 100% or 50% of what they're asking for before you say we can't help you? And that culture, that concept is permeating itself within this organization to understand that we're here for a given period of time, and we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to help our citizens and businesses. And our first responders are some of the best of that, is they do whatever they can to help those residents and whatever need at that particular time when they're on scene. And that inspired me many years ago to say, look, we can get to yes as often as possible, just by looking at other departments, and how can we get to yes when it comes to streets and stormwater? How can we get to yes to community development? How can we get yes to parks and recreation to provide better services? It's easy to say no. I mean, no is actually very easy to do, but creative and strong leaders, strategic thinkers look to find ways to make the community better, and that's who I've surrounded myself with, and I'm truly blessed to have. And what's happened is the council members, they come in with the belief they want to serve their citizens, and so they buy into getting to yes. I hear them say it all the time now, is because they want to better serve the citizens in the business community, and so it's working very well right now. And I couldn't be happier with the responsiveness we have to our group and our citizens, I should say, and the survey basically shows that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Well, we'll wrap this up. I'll do my part on getting to yes. You're backed up with another meeting, and you had to ask me beforehand, how can we get to yes and get this done, and so I can get to my next meeting. So let me do my part. Busy September. Looking forward to October. And I appreciate the conversation.
All right, my friend. Look forward to next month.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
The Vibe Broken Arrow is produced by the City of Broken Arrow. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to hear more about Broken Arrow, the city where opportunity lives.